hard gainers. Personally, I don't really think they exist. I will accept that some people do find it harder to put on muscle mass than others, but generally speaking, I find that hard gainers are making the same two mistakes that every typical hard gainer makes. Just can't stop doing that, apparently. This essentially boils down to two problems. The first problem is one that you already probably know, is that you're simply not eating enough. Now, the first response I hear when I ask this question is, but I eat loads. And my response to that is, define loads. This works in the exact same way as weight loss, when even though they feel like they did eat a small amount, it still amounts to a surprising amount of calories. Some people are just naturally lean. I listened to a great podcast the other day by someone called Dr. Huberman, and he explained that there are actually pretty typical characteristics of individuals who you might define as naturally lean. I nearly did that again. In this podcast, he mentions that these people are much more twitchy, have a lot more energy, often do things like shake their leg or like play around with their hands. After they eat, they start sweating, they have to stand up, they have to walk about now. Personally, I can completely relate to this. If you're in the same boat as me, your energy expenditure on a day-to-day basis will be exceptionally higher than average. It might not sound like much, but all these twitchy little habits that we have when we eat and we get that energy and we feel a bit restless, they all are our sort of body's natural way of having too much energy in our system and therefore needing to move to burn it out. And those little habits equate to a lot of energy expenditure. This is why you might have worked out your macros on an online calculator and how many calories you need to eat, which for 9 times out of 10 are way off anyway, and have even gone as far as tracking your calories and been like, I'm hitting this every day and I'm still not gaining weight. The reality is, eating to gain muscle mass is actually really difficult. If you've watched any of the world's strongest documentaries, they'll all categorically say that the hardest thing about training for World's Strongest Man is the sheer amount of calories that you have to eat. They are, in essence, force-feeding themselves. You don't have to go to that same extreme, but in order for you to be in a calorie surplus, and you need to be eating to the point where you're full and almost uncomfortable. That was my personal experience with it anyway. If you fit this naturally lean persona and you've always struggled with putting on muscle mass, then the way to view it is it's your body's natural way of knowing when it's got too many calories, that it finds a way to level it out. If you haven't tracked your calories at all and never done it and you just think you eat loads, then I can guarantee you now you're way off. I remember about 6 or 7 years ago, I was stuck on the same weight. My strength was plateauing, my size was obviously plateauing, and I was getting super frustrated and blaming the workout and any other excuse I could find. The moment I did some research and found out the actual amount of calories that I needed to eat, I realized the difference between what I thought was eating a lot and what was actually eating a lot. I would sometimes get to the end of the day and have a whole baguette of garlic bread to myself just to force down those extra calories because I was still like 1,000 short of where I needed to be. After finally achieving that calorie surplus for the 2-3 months, I gained 6 kilos. Granted, I tried to keep it as, I hate the term, but clean and as healthy as possible. But when you are aiming for that calorie surplus, you do have the luxury of going for less nutrient dense calories like the garlic bread that I mentioned to help you hit your number. Of course, I did also gain body fat. It's impossible not to do that when you're bulking. But as I'm the same as you and always been naturally lean, it wasn't really that noticeable at all. On top of this, unsurprisingly, my performance in the gym and my strength gains all went through the roof as well. Now, the good news is once I gained that 6 kilos, I was happy with the size, I was happy with the weight. To be honest, I couldn't be asked to force feed myself any more calories, and I actually found it really easy to sustain that weight and sustain that size. Even better news, over the next 6 months to a year, like I said, I did gain a bit of body fat, but I held that size and I slowly trimmed down because I kept the same calorie intake, I kept the same training regime. As my body adjusted, those small bits of body fat that I had gained started to chip away. If you want me to help you out on this, then drop me a message. Moving on to the second problem, and that is simply that your training routine is shit. Despite all these online programs, there is no magic formula. There is no magic training split that's going to make you gain X amount of pounds? All of a sudden I'm American. That's going to make you gain X amount of kilos and muscle mass without making sure that you're in a calorie surplus. it simply won't happen. I can give you a very quick leg day session right now that if you're in a calorie surplus and if you're getting, really importantly, adequate amount of protein, you will 100% gain muscle mass on your legs. Back squats, 4 sets to 5 at 85% plus. Split squats, 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps at 70%, 60 to 70%, give or take. And leg extension, the quad pump, leg curls, 3 sets of 15 reps plus or to failure with less than 60 seconds rest. Follow that for 6 weeks. Make sure you're in a surplus of roughly about 500 calories a day, and I can guarantee your legs will grow. Rather than give you back, chest, etc., I'll tell you right now. So the magic formula, as it were, is 1 strength set, heavy compound. So if we're doing chest, then bench press, an easy one. Follow that up with a hypertrophy set. So now we drop the weight and we do more 8 to 12 rep range, reduce the rest time. So if we're going chest again, incline bench press, for example. And then lastly, an isolation exercise, low weight, high reps to failure, get that pump, 12 to 15 to reps to failure. I'm going to leave that for the second point because, like I said, it doesn't matter if you're not eating enough, and I can guarantee you now you're not doing that. As I said earlier, if you want some help on this, if you want some general guidance or a starting point as to what kind of foods to eat and the amount of calories you should be consuming, then drop me a comment and I'll get right back to you.